What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So, where we're at with the Minecraft server. So, the last stream I did, and I was supposed to do one last week. However, I ran into some issues with deploying Grafana. So, and I'll actually go over those issues because I think this is probably a common thing that may or may not happen to you. But the last place we were at, essentially, was we had our config file for Grafana to deploy the agent. We had Ansible set up on the host machine, and we're going to use Ansible to deploy the agent. We're still going to do that. However, I had to rewrite that entire config because it did not work as is. So let me explain why I had to fix that config file. So initially, the tutorial we were following was meant for Linux, right? So it was meant for like Ubuntu or a Debian-based system or whatever flavor that is Debian-based, right? And that's what it's for. So the VM that our Minecraft server is running is a container-optimized image from Google. And essentially what that means is it was specifically designed only to run containers. So it doesn't have any normal tools you would have on a normal Linux machine. So it doesn't have like certain Linux commands available, and it didn't have a package manager. So it didn't have apt or apt-get or dpkg, I think. It didn't have any package manager. So Ansible could not install any tools on that container optimized OS. But what it can do really well is it can run containers. And essentially what I did is I deployed a Grafana agent container to the virtual machine. So I ran into my own issues with that, right? The problem with running that image is it was actually sending me the logs from the container itself and not the actual virtual machine. So it was the container was basically looking at itself and being like, excuse me, oh, here's my logs. Here you go. That's not what we want, though. We want the logs from the Linux machine itself, right? So I had to think of a workaround on how to do that. And I don't know if it's exactly the best way to do it. Probably not, but it is a way to do it, and I'll show you exactly what I did. So before we get into it, what is up, Christian Soto with the fire emoji? Thank you, sir. Welcome to the stream today. So let's just dive right into this. It's a little bit of a doozy, all right? I'm not going to lie, but I will show you the end result. So full disclosure, I still have to get metrics to display what I want, but that's a Grafana problem. That's not necessarily like a code problem. So I also made a couple changes to the Minecraft server. I actually accidentally wiped the Minecraft server. Sorry about that to the people who are using it, who may or may not be watching the stream. But essentially, we just added a persistent disk to our machine. So the way I had this set up before is the volume was mounted to memory, essentially, which is like a typical thing I think that Docker does. I had a persistent disk attached to the instance, but it wasn't saving the data on that disk because I didn't call it out in this file, right? So now I've got that fixed. Now the data is being backed up, and we're good. So we shouldn't lose our Minecraft server again. So that's good. That's the one change I made here. And here we just attach the disk. No problem, right? So let's get on to the Grafana configuration. So to refresh your memory and to refresh mine, essentially here's our Ansible setup. So we're using our default Google Compute Engine credentials to authenticate as the user, in this case, my user on Google Cloud, which is Kmouse. And this is how we're connecting to our instance with Ansible, right? We have our inventory of 1, which is our public IP of our instance. And then we also have a couple other files. So I think last time you saw me do deploy agent, right? So this is where things were totally different. So the example in the tutorial, like I said, was almost completely different, and I had to create my own. This is my own playbook file, essentially. So what I'm doing in this file, what Ansible is going to do, essentially we're going to run this on all hosts, right? And this become true just means you're going to become the root user. You're going to become super user, right? And we got to do a number of tasks on this machine. So the first thing we had to do is create some directories. So we had to create the /etc/agent/data directory, which is what Grafana uses specifically to, I think, like cache some data or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it works off the top of my head. And then what we have to do, so I have a local configuration, which I'm going to push this up to the repo after the stream. I'm going to push an example config, though. I'm not going to push my config because it actually has secrets in it. So I will show you the example config. It's the exact same as mine. It's just the secrets are redacted, right? So essentially, we're going to copy that file, which is going to be our agent config.yaml in our local directory. We're going to copy it to /etc/agent as agent.yaml, right? And this follow parameter essentially means override it if it already exists. I think that's what it means. So next thing I'm going to do, or Ansible is going to do, it's going to pull the Grafana agent image. So this pulls it from Docker Hub. So Grafana officially releases a Docker image that you can use. It's public, it's open source, and it's free. So we're going to take that and we're going to use it in our on our VM, right? So here is where things get a little bit interesting, and we're going to start a container using this image. So we're going to name it Grafana Agent because that's what it is, and we're going to use the Grafana Agent image at this specific version. We're going to make sure that it is started, and we're going to set the restart policy to always. So that means if this this container crashes at some point or another, it's going to continuously try to restart it, right? This restart command here essentially just says if the container is already running, restart it, right? And we're going to give these flags to the server. So it needs the config file, which is now copied onto the host machine from our previous step, right? And it also needs this -server HTTP address, which essentially just tells it where the local host is, right? I believe that's what it's for. I remember reading, like I went down a real rabbit hole with this, guys. Like I really did. And I don't quite remember what this actually does. I think it tells the Docker container that, hey, this is where the host is at. Like, even though it's running on the host, it doesn't necessarily know, it's not self-aware, right? So this is essentially pointing it to, hey, this is the host. So another thing that I did. So this is where I don't know if this is exactly the best practice on how to do this. I would imagine not, but it does work, and I will show you the result of this. Essentially, we had to mount our the directories that we created with this step. We had to mount it to the container, so the container has access to the config file, and it has access to this agent/data file, right? And here's the weird thing that I did is I actually mounted the var log directory of the computer that it runs on the virtual machine that it runs on, to the container under this host log name. So essentially, I'm just mirroring the directories inside of the container, so the container has access to the host machine's directories, right? And I did the same thing for this directory. And you're like, wow, that's super long and looks very confusing. To simplify this is essentially our Minecraft data directory. So this is where all the logs and the configuration for Minecraft lives. This is where it is on the host machine itself, right? Because remember, I added a persistent drive, so now it's actually physically on the machine. It's not just in memory like it was before, right? And I mounted that to var log/mc logs. So that exists in the container, and it has access to it. So I can actually show you that, I believe. So wrong instance. That's a test instance I was looking at. You can see I was doing a little bit of work with Ansible here, but we'll go under instance and we will verify our directory here. So if we go to this directory, I'm just going to copy and paste this. We're going to become root user. And then we're going to change directory to this, what we have pasted in our config. And if you can see, all of our Minecraft stuff is here. Actually, let me zoom this in. I don't know if this is difficult for you guys to see. It's difficult for my old eyes to see, right? So if we do an ls on this, you can see it has like banned IPs and banned players and your user agreement .text and our logs. And here's the actual Minecraft like Java file and basically normal configurations you would use for Minecraft, right? If you're running this locally. But if we go to our logs directory and we do an ls on this, our Docker container, can now see all of these logs, which is exactly what we want it to do because we want to ship these logs to another platform, to Grafana, right? So I just wanted to explain that whole piece and what was going on. And then we also have our /var /log, and that's just our normal like host machine logs. So that's good. And that's what we're mirroring here. So now our container that runs the Grafana agent, which I can show you actually. So if I run a Docker PS here, you can see I'm running 3 containers. So Stackdriver logging agent, that's for Google Cloud logging purposes, which that's going to come into play a little bit later when we get into metrics. And I configure that correctly because I still have yet to figure that out. I don't know if that's like a UI or I don't know if I have to basically do a little bit of calculations for it to actually display the right metrics that I want, because I'm trying to monitor CPU usage, right? So that way I know when the server is under heavy load, I'm going to be able to react to that, scale up the server, whatever the case may be. But so this is just the built-in Stackdriver agent that runs in every container optimized OS for Google. That way it sends logs to Google Cloud Logging, right? So you can see it in the console. And then we have our Minecraft server container. And then we have this Grafana agent, which is what we deploy with Ansible, right? So if I do a Docker inspect and I do A87, fun fact, which I just learned recently, you don't have to actually type this entire container ID. You can just type the first 3 characters and we'll actually know which container you're talking about. I didn't know that about Docker until recently. Actually, someone at work showed me that, and it was pretty awesome. But let us check our attached volume. So here are the extra arguments that we passed it, right? We saw those in our config file. Here's our bind mount. So these 2 volumes are essentially bound to the container itself. And here we have our host log, and you can see our source right here, which is this var log, right? That is on the host machine, and then on the container, it's called this. So we're just copying, not even copying, we're just pointing the Docker container to that directory, right? And then we're doing the same thing for our Minecraft logs, right? So that's good. We've got everything we need from our machine. Now, let me show you our Ansible CLI output, right? So I'm not going to run it again just because it's going to restart the container. I don't think it's going to cause any issues, but this is essentially what Ansible looks like when it wants to do something, right? So you can see here, this is the command I ran. So this Ansible playbook deploy agent, and I gave it a V flag just to ensure that I was doing exactly what I want. And the V flag is just verbosity. So the more V's you add to it, up to 3, the more output you get from it trying to do things. So here you can see it's actually trying to connect. So this is all the data it uses to connect to, your instance. It calls out the number of plays in the playbook, which is, we just have 1. And then it's going to play that playbook. So the first thing it does is it gathers facts, and essentially that just tries to understand what environment it's working in on the host machine. So it checks to make sure that it has Python 3.8 installed. It checks that it's actually a Linux machine and it can connect via SSH. It says that's okay, and it continues on to the next one. So here you can even see the path. So you can see it's line 6 of our deploy agent up here. See line 6. It's going to create the directories. And basically it says, okay, good to go, created the directories. And then it's going to copy this local file. So it's going to be this agent.config, which we'll get to right after I show you guys Ansible, right? So we'll get into this. So it's going to copy this file onto the host machine. I should have showed you that when the terminal was up, but it's all good. And essentially make sure that that exists on our host machine, which we did that, good to go. Obviously, otherwise our container would not run correctly, right? And now it's going to pull the Grafana agent image, which it did here. It basically, this is just metadata about the container image itself, right? Nothing too crazy here. And here's where it just ensures that the container is actually running. So again, this is just an output for the metadata for the container. So these are just the default credentials. I didn't give it any special flags or anything like that. So boom, we have it installed on our host machine. So now that we got Ansible to do that, let's check out our agent config example file. So like I said, I'm not going to show you the actual agent config.yaml because it has Grafana secrets in it. So this also had to be customized a little bit. So this is essentially a template I got from Grafana's website. So they're getting started documentation with Linux. I kind of like altered it to make it work for my situation, right? So the first thing we got to give it is our metrics config. Scrape interval is essentially how often do you want this to collect logs from your host machine, right? How often do you want it to literally scrape logs and then send it to Grafana Cloud? These are the different configs. So this is just a name. We give it an integration, which I'll show you on the Grafana Cloud side in a second. It's just a tag that you kind of apply to Grafana, right? So you can organize your data a little bit better. And then it needs authentication in the URL it's going to authenticate to. Like I said, I'm going to throw this up to GitHub, and you just have to fill in your actual Grafana Cloud like secrets essentially. And then we go to our logging config, right? So I have two different configs. I have one for /var/log, right? And that's just our normal log, right? So I had to change our path, remember, because we're looking inside the container. So we had to look at /var/log/host log, and we're just grabbing all the logs from that. And that's the same. We basically just mapped it to /var/log on the host machine. And then we did the same thing down here with the /var/log MC logs. And I'm only looking at the latest log because the rest of the logs for Minecraft get compressed. So you would have to like expand them, and then I really don't want to deal with that. And latest log is plenty big enough to debug anything that happens like recently on the server, right? So another thing I had to do is this is what I was trying to do, this host.docker internal. Essentially that points to the host machine. However, it wasn't really working as I expected it to. So it actually still pointed to the Docker container itself, right? So it didn't really work like I wanted it to, but totally fine. We still got it to work, right? Same authentication stuff here. So this is for Loki, I believe. And Prometheus is what does the metric scraping, which is like CPU data and stuff like that. And Loki is what does the actual logs, if I remember correctly. And then here we just have integrations. And this is essentially where we give it more tags. So we name the instance that these logs are for, so that way they're grouped correctly in Grafana. And then our essentially basic auth for scraping the metrics for Prometheus, right? And that's pretty much it as far as Grafana and setting it up as a container in a container optimized OS. I know it seems like a lot of information, and it kind of is. So Grafana is like, you could specialize in Grafana and like have a career forever, because it's a very involved. It has its own language. It has GraphQL, which I believe that is its own language. So it's just Grafana query language is what it stands for. There's a lot involved. It's very hard to be an expert at Grafana, I think, because there's so many things you can do to it. And honestly, even so, funny story is I actually had the opportunity to talk to Grafana support, and even they have a hard time understanding like how their own stuff works sometimes. So granted, I think it depends on the rep you get, but he was a good dude. Like he was like, hey, like I really don't know. Like I'm gonna have to figure it out and get back to you guys, which is no problem. Totally happens. Like I get it. But that's what we have there. So let's check out our actual Grafana instance, right? And I'm kind of messing with some stuff on the metric side, but the important part here, which we can refresh this. So there's not a lot of logs because I don't think anybody logged in recently, but these are our Minecraft server logs. So what if we did the last like 12 hours, right? Yeah, there we go. So here you can actually see our legitimate logs from the Minecraft server. So this is like from the Minecraft CLI. So we can see, player joined the game, lost connection. You can even see some errors if we go back far enough. So if we go to like 2 days, I know we were having some latency issues in the past. Yeah, so here you can see can't keep up, is a server overloaded, and that's essentially when our CPU usage was really high because farms tend to do that a lot. So if you have like iron farms and stuff like that, it kind of takes a lot of bandwidth, a lot of CPU usage to do that. Or if you just have a ton of players online. But yeah, so there we actually have our Minecraft logs, right? So here we have advancements that are made and stuff like that. So this is some stuff I was messing with on the metric side. And like I said, I still have stuff to figure out here. But let's see if we can edit this and try to get the actual label browser. Actually don't see our var logs anywhere. Oh, that's because we have to change. So this is just our different sources. You got to bear with me, guys. I'm pretty new to Grafana in general, so there's a lot involved with this. So I use it at work, but it was kind of like already set up when I started working there. So, it's not, I don't know the ins and outs of Grafana, okay? And actually, I didn't even set it up. I just use it to look at logs that are already existing, right? What is up, Max Dignitas? Learn to mine live. Not quite. I haven't stooped to that level yet. Maybe I will become a full-time Minecraft streamer. Might be more advantageous than explaining cloud things. So let's see if we can change the job type. So we still have MC logs. For some reason, I can't get var logs on here. I know it's there because we set it up on the container. But that's the other thing I'm messing with. So essentially, we're going to discard this dashboard because it doesn't do anything. Let's see. I lost my page. There we go. Takes a minute to query data, so we'll just go to last 1 hour. But I'm still messing with metrics. I'm still figuring this thing out. And I know we can also set up alerts for this too. So I want to do that just for the explanation thing. I'm not going to be on call for my Minecraft server. But I think it would be a good thing to talk about when it comes to this kind of topic, because this is something you would normally do for like a new instance. And like I said, this is an iterative process. There's no like new environment in the world that comes like completely done from the very beginning, right? I think that goes, for software developers too. You don't have a finished product as soon as you deploy your stuff, right? Same goes for infrastructure, man. Like you just kind of build on top of it until you get to a state where it's like, all right, most things are automated and we're pretty good. But at least we have some visibility into the Minecraft logs themselves. Still working on the machine logs, still working on metrics. So there is another thing that we can add that I think I'm going to do. And I actually kind of stole that idea from work. There's another metric. There's another config that you can give this that scrapes metrics directly from Google Cloud. So since we already have Stackdriver running on our instance, why do the same work over again? It's already shipping logs to Google Cloud. Why don't we just authenticate our Grafana agent to Google Cloud and pull logs directly from there? I think that makes more sense than setting up another scraping metric and, basically running more processes on that container, right? So that's what we're going to do. I have to look at how to do that. I just vaguely glanced at it at my current job, but that's cool because I wanted to keep this stream a little bit short. So that is a brief overview of getting some visibility. I'm going to keep working on this. Let's go over our README really quick, and I will update you on what I actually changed on this and how I did it. So we've already got that stuff done. So when we redeployed our Java edition, we gave it its own network. We converted all of our Python functions. We added auto shutdown scripts, but I turned them off because they were wiping player data. So they're there. And I think they might work now that the host is actually or the data is actually on the host itself versus in memory. So that was my bad. And we do have automated server backups. I didn't do those in Terraform, however. I know I should have, but I didn't. Just because it was really easy to set up here. So if we look at snapshots, we're doing daily snapshots of our Minecraft server, and we can see our different schedules. So we have two different ones. So this is these two are not being used. But we have our MC boot disk here. So this is just our boot disk, which is where your main directories live, right? And then I also have one on our mounted disk, which is our MC data disk, which is it's kind of like a fail safe. So I have this volume attached to the instance, but it's separate and it copies data from the root volume or the boot disk over to this. I know it's kind of weird. It's a weird setup, but I kind of got paranoid when I wiped the server the first time. So we have plenty of data, right? Plenty, literally every day. We're backing up this data, so we shouldn't have any data loss from here on out. All right. And then, like I said, we have two different disks. So we have our data disk, which this is a permanent disk, and then we also have our MC server. So essentially, if for whatever reason the server goes down, I can literally just grab this disk and spin up another instance, or I can grab a snapshot and spin up another instance. So I have multiple ways of recovery, of doing disaster recovery, right? Which is another topic we'll get into a little bit later. That's a more advanced topic, I would say. But so far, we're doing good with backups. We're doing good with data, right? I actually did scale up the instance, which is what caused the data loss in the first place. So now we're running on 2 virtual CPUs and 8 gigabytes of memory, which we might actually have to scale up our virtual CPUs as well, depending on how crazy our Minecraft server gets, right? And we did enable a soft shutdown, but I think that was because, again, our data was stored in memory. So there was an issue where if you would stop the server, your Minecraft data was gone, right? So not good. So now we've got that taken care of. So we're we got a lot of stuff done. Okay, we still have this. I don't want to mark off complete yet. I'm going to do another update video once I figure out the metrics on Grafana Cloud. So I think it's on that side of the thing, on that side of the house, which I will play with Grafana Cloud a little bit more, and we'll get some better metrics in there. And then we'll also set up alerting. I should probably add that too. Might as well add it to the list, right? Set up alerting via Grafana. Okay. So we're actually migrating our Grafana stuff to do Grafana alerts. But anyway, here nor there. So yeah, we're going to set up alerting. Just as an example, I'm going to turn the alerts off. Like I said, I'm not going to be on call for Minecraft server. It's a little ridiculous. This, I need a better solution for adding users. I really don't like the cloud function thing. Mostly because it doesn't work very well, because it's not dedicated IPv4. It's still IPv6. So we're still having that issue, but I think I might actually have a solution to where that add function can live. So you can give functions IP addresses, so that way that person only has to like reach out to an IP address. And if I give it an IPv4 address, then therefore I can basically force it to use IPv4 protocol, right? So therefore I can get the IPv4 address, and I don't have to keep manually adding people to the firewall role, and I can actually use my add user function. So that's my idea. I'm going to try it, and we're going to see if it works. But apart from that, I want to do some more continuous delivery kind of. It's kind of integration. I don't know if I really want to run tests on this thing. I mean, we could. I actually recently did some tests that are pretty cool, so we might actually do it just to see. I think I need a GitHub Enterprise account though in order for the security tab to show on GitHub, but I don't know. So we'll see. But I do want to at least touch on GitHub Actions because I use GitHub Actions quite a bit. And it's an awesome tool. I love it for continuous delivery, and it works really well for continuous integration too. So continuous integration is more of the testing side of things. So, you test your code to make sure that it doesn't break anything going into the new environment, and then continuous delivery automatically applies whatever updates you've made, right? So that's the left hand and right hand to CI/CD. So those are things we want to do. I kind of want to migrate to Kubernetes, but I need to find a way I can do this that it's not going to cost me a ton of money. If the Minecraft server gets to a point where it's actually cheaper to run on GKE, I might as well just do it. But right now, we'll kind of play it by ear, right? So another thing I would like to do is migrate the local state that I have on my computer and put that in GCS. So that's just a best practice thing. Super easy to do. I might actually do that next video just to show you guys how to do it. But with that being said, that's where we're at, guys. I think I got it right around the 30-minute mark, which is awesome. But yeah, so that's Grafana in a nutshell. Again, we're going to continue to work on this. I want to get those metrics because that's the important one. That's the one I really want. I want that CPU usage, so I know when to scale up, basically. But that was a lot to figure out. It really was. It took me it took me longer than I really wanted it to. But yeah, it'd be like that sometimes. So with that being said, thank you guys. Please like the video. I believe I have the repo in the description. If not, it will be there after this video. And thank you guys very much. Have a good night.